Hi there, it's Alexandra from the Middle-Sized Garden YouTube channel and blog, and I'm here in this beautiful private garden in the Kent countryside with head gardener Jim Treby to talk about the best shrubs for topiary. Topiary is something that we often associate with grand gardens, but actually it can make all the difference in small and middle-sized gardens because it provides shape and structure, especially in the winter. It's the art of clipping shrubs into shapes. The most common plant to use for topiary is box or boxwood, but here in the United Kingdom we've had a lot of problems with box blight and also with box tree caterpillar. So we've been looking for alternatives to topiary shrubs. Even if you don't have box blight where you are, it's a good idea to have your different shrubs for topiary because there's lovely leaf contrast and it'll look more interesting. But also if you have lots of the same plant in your garden, then if a pest or a disease does come along, it'll just rip through the garden and devastate it. We'll use a mix of common and botanical names when we're talking, but I will put the correct botanic names in the description below with a timestamp because plants are called different things in different countries and you need the botanic name to be sure that you're getting the shrub that really works for your topiary. So Jim, what's your favourite shrub for topiary?
For topiary, it's box. But unfortunately in this country we're having so many problems with the pests, with box blight and the box tree caterpillar, that I have started to use alternatives. I mean, box is ideal because it's slow growing. You can get away with only having to trim it once a year and it forms a very tight hedge. And it is the ultimate topiary, but unfortunately I think the time is up in this country for it. The biggest threat is the box tree caterpillar because it does go through the plants very quickly. This year I've had the first case of it, thankfully on one of the pots, or two of the pots on the terrace. So I was able to move them away to the far end of the estate and actually spray them with an insecticide, which I don't normally like to be using, but in this instant, because we have so much box here, it was something I had to do, and thankfully it seems to have got it under control at the moment. So
what's your number one alternative for box topiary?
100%. It's a fantastic plant. It's very robust. It doesn't have really any problem with pest or disease. The only thing it doesn't like is its roots sitting in wet soils. Other than that, it is more than happy. You can prune it as hard as you want and practically into any shape you want. It's a fantastic alternative. You've got the English yew, which you can shape in more or less into any shape you want, but then you have the Irish yew, which is the upright fastigiate growing. So if all depending on what type of topiary you want to create, if you do just want upright columns, then I'd recommend the Irish yew. But generally, if you want balls, hedges, it would be the normal standard English Taxus baccata. A lot of people think of yew as very large hedges, but as you can see behind me, you can actually form quite low, compact hedges with them. And this hedge here is actually only 3 years old. The trick with yew is to buy plants at least 60 to 80 centimetres tall when you buy them, root balled ones throughout the autumn. They establish a lot better than the smaller plants. For some reason, pot-grown smaller yews don't seem to establish very well, and you have a high failure rate with them. And if you don't want such a tall hedge, it's fine because you can cut them down once they're planted to the height that you want them, and you've more or less got an instant hedge.
So what's your number two alternative for box topiary?
Generally, for balls, large balls, it would be the Pittosporum. Again, it's another fantastic plant. Doesn't have very many pests. It can suffer from a bit of mildew or leaf spot, which again is a fungus which can be treated quite easily. That again can be pruned very hard. It's drought tolerant. It's very vigorous. Along with the yew and the Pittosporum, you have to trim them twice a year. Just trim them in spring, trim them in autumn. Where the box you can trim midsummer or late summer, and it'll be fine till the following year. So they are slightly more highly maintenance, but as far as they go, they are fantastic substitutes. One thing I have found with them, they have a very vigorous root system. So be careful when you are choosing them in the nursery to check they're not pot bound, because they do tend to become, they become pot bound very easily. So make sure you get a good healthy plant, and also they can be a little bit frost tender. So I wouldn't plant them in an area of the garden that's a frost pocket, that's continuously, has frost throughout the day, throughout the winter. And in general, if you know you're going to have a very hard frost, it wouldn't hurt just placing a fleece over them. Just give them a little bit of protection. But other than that, they're fantastic. Yeah.
And are there any other plants that you'd suggest we use for topiary that aren't box?
Yes, Euonymus. Comes in different varieties. You have the Euonymus fortunei. We've got the Emerald Gaiety here, which is very similar to the Silver Queen, very light coloured leaf. That is more of a creeper type of Euonymus. Forms a fantastic, very low hedge, but it takes time with pruning and quite a few years to actually establish it as a low hedge. The other Euonymus, which is the japonica, is more the upright, more vigorous growing, which is more ideal for hedges this size. But again, pest and disease resistance is very high. I don't overly have many problems with them. They do tend to lose their leaves in the coldest of winter, but they grow back perfectly fine in spring. And again, they're very drought tolerant. All these plants are, are quite suited to the dry climate, especially in the southeast here that we have in England.
And are there any plants that are often recommended for topiary, but which you personally don't feel are worth recommending?
Yeah, I mean, there's the common privet. It's very vigorous privet, and it's very loose growing. You can topiary it into a ball or into a square hedge, but you're looking at least 3 times a year trimming that to actually keep it looking how you want it to. It's very high maintenance. And again with holly, it's very loose. They're quite loose plants. They're quite slow growing holly, so you don't have to prune them as much as you would with privet, but you won't get the tight, compact topiary you would from yew or Pittosporum or again box.
And what about Japanese holly or Ilex crenata? Because that was recommended quite a lot as a substitute for box when these first problems arose a few years ago.
Yeah, when it first came out or sort of become known in this country, probably about 6 or 7 years ago, it was meant to be a good replacement for box. The previous gardener before I came here, replaced some box blight plants with it in our rose garden. It hasn't done well at all. It hasn't established. It hasn't formed a tight hedge. It always looks a bit yellowy, peaky, very thin. It's, according to the RHS, it's meant to grow in any soil, any situation, but it just doesn't thrive in our garden, and it's very expensive. So personally, I wouldn't, for myself, purchase it again.
Jim also told me about Viburnum tinus, which you can see here clipped into lollipops just behind the box balls. But Jim said that these are good if you're going to have a rounded shape like a ball or a lollipop, but that they wouldn't be any good for cones and spirals, so they're not that flexible in their use. And while it's not strictly topiary, I love what you've done to this conifer hedge, and you've sort of sculpted it. Can you tell me a bit more about that?
This hedge was put in by the previous gardeners. It's a fantastic addition to the cutting garden. It consists of the main Leylandii hedge behind, with blocks of Thua conifers, which are just individual trees that have been trimmed into blocks in front, and the lighter colour of the Thua against the dark green of the Leylandii really adds to the effect.
I found visiting private gardens so inspiring, and a lot of them are either never or very rarely open to the public. So I've put together a playlist of private gardens which you'll find at the end of this video. And if you'd like more tips, ideas and inspiration for your garden, then do subscribe to the Middle Sized Garden YouTube channel, and thank you for watching. Goodbye.